Hello, today we are going to talk about software testing reviews. A review is mainly a process where one or more individuals evaluate either a work product or a process in order to detect defects and improve the overall quality. Simple, right? Well, let me tell you something. Reviews are one of the most beneficial from a cost perspective within the software testing process. A review done right, better said, is the most cost-effective option that you have in order to detect defect and improve the overall quality of either your product or of your project. This is why, as a test manager, you should not only know what reviews to use and when, but also how to properly manage them. In this session, we are going to cover the different type of reviews, but before we move forward, I would like to highlight that any review that you plan to cover during the process needs to be in line with the test policy and the specific test strategy within either your department or at your program level. This is why you will notice that most of the time reviews should be aligned with milestones. For example, a very good point to execute a review is after requirement design, is after requirement analysis, or after specification design. Then you can start with a breakdown starting from the business objective and further drilling down into the detail levels. Another good example would be to do a review at the beginning, in the middle, and even at the end of test execution. Before we start describing what is an informal review, it is important to know that in the beginning you need to understand who do you want to have involved in the reviews, what types of reviews you want to plan for each milestone or for each gate that you establish within your review strategy, and most importantly, which risk factors do you want to review. The informal review is simple. This is a review without any formal or any documented procedure. So let's say an ad hoc. You just take one of your peers, sit down and look at it. You discuss it, you debate it, you try to understand what's happening. You can also involve more colleagues or have more participants within an informal review. You're not limited to one. Most common, you see this as peer review or as a peer discussion, which is in an informal setting. Keep in mind that because we call it an informal review, doesn't mean that we cannot document the results. We can have a meeting, we can sit down, write down what we found out, write down what are the next steps, what do we need, and so on and so forth. The idea is that informal review doesn't follow a specific procedure. It doesn't follow a set of rules that must be applied. Okay, so before we move to the next item, it is important to understand that the overall goal of this informal review is to detect defects, and most often this will solve a lot of your minor problems. Sometimes even it will be a very good idea for a brainstorming session. Okay, so we are moving now to the next types of reviews. I'm going to talk about the walkthrough. As per the name suggests, this is a walkthrough. This is where somebody presents in order to walk us through the specific document, specific solution, specific procedure, in order to ask questions and make comments about what is being implemented, about what is being designed, about what is actually there. Again, the main purpose is the same. Find defects, solicit ideas, generate improvements, touch the overall quality and make it better. It is also good to remember that a walkthrough can be both formal and informal, similar to the one that we just discussed. Okay, so it can follow a procedure, but we can also have walkthroughs that do not follow a procedure or a documented procedure. Even though this can be both formal and informal, it is important to note that we need a meeting and a scribe to document the walkthrough. For this meeting, the audience can prepare beforehand. During the meeting, we can even have dry runs and simulations not only discuss and present the business process or the business solution, we can use checklists, and we need to log the issues that are identified or the changes that come up. Crossing the border to the formal reviews, I would start with the technical review. The technical review is a formal review type where a team of technically proficient personnel the suitability of a work product in order to understand if it is fit for use or if it is in line with the requirements, the specifications or standards. The main purpose here is gaining consensus besides finding defects. This can also help evaluate the overall quality and build improvements or even enhance the current solution. During this technical review, we have the same meeting that we have for a walkthrough, but it is important to prepare before the meeting. This is actually a must. Another important part is that the scribe, so the person that documents everything, is not the same as the author. Moving from must to should, reviewers should be formed of technical peers of the author, technical experts within the same discipline, and we definitely should track and log the defects or problems that we find. Next on the list is the inspection. As you can see, we are moving from formal to more formal. This is a formal review type in order to identify issues in a work product or process, so similar to the technical review, but the objective here is to provide measurements in order to improve either the process or the product. On top of this, we aim to prevent future defects by author learning due to this process. Inspections can also motivate authors to improve in future products. Compared to the technical review, this is more formal. There are specific rules that need to be followed and documented. That's why we use checklists. Clearly defined checklists. The following is an example. Clearly defined mandatory roles. Individual preparation before the session. Reviewers are peers of the author or experts in the discipline of the author. Specific entry and exit criteria. A trained facilitator should lead this discussion. Do not allow the author to lead. Defect logs and review reports are a must. Collect metrics in order to improve the process. As you can see, this was a checklist with everything that must be done for the inspection. Okay, so the reviews and the examples that we just had before are the ones that are common knowledge for the testers, for the test analysts, for the test managers. Moving now into the specific area of the test managers, we are going to talk about audits and management reviews. Now, let's start with the management review. The management review is a systematic evaluation of software acquisition, supply, development, operation, and maintenance process. Okay, so what does that tell us? Not a lot. Let's add a little bit more details. This is performed by or on behalf of management. Okay, so as managers are starting to look at the items that I just mentioned, supply, development, operations, but our purpose here is to monitor progress, determine the status of plans and the schedules, confirm requirements and system allocation, and finally evaluate the effectiveness of the overall process. That's a complicated way of saying that the management review monitors, assesses what's going on in order to make decisions. What kinds of decisions? Simple. Adapt the level of resources, implement corrective actions, and change the scope of the work or of the product. Some key traits are the fact that they are conducted by or for managers. They check consistency, they check if the existing procedures are taking us where we need to go, they help assess project risks, and of course evaluate the impact of the actions taken. How do we know that we completed the management review? Simple, we have a list of clear actions and next steps that need to be implemented and acted upon. Our last item for this session refers to audits. This audit is an independent examination of a process or product done by a third party. Okay, internal audits exist, but the audits that I'm referring here, as per the ISTQB, are the ones done by the third parties. And their goal is simple. they need to assess the compliance either to standards, policies, the contract, or anything else. But here, when we talk about audit, we talk about compliance. They are usually performed in order to demonstrate that we are aligned with a set of required criteria. They are conducted and led by a lead auditor, always have documented results in order to provide evidences of what was audited and what was implemented. A good tip in case of audits is to never start and do everything. Split it. Take 10%, 15% of the work that is already done. Audit it. If the response is positive, okay. If not, then further extend the audit. With this, we conclude the different types of formal reviews. And in our next session, we are going to focus on managing these types of reviews.